Today's news of Taiwan broadcast, July 24, 2026.
Today, we're taking a completely chaotic mountain of daily news, and while turning it into a clear, structured visual breakdown, we've got a ton of ground to cover today. I'm talking everything from massive global market shifts right down to incredibly local, impactful stories that might literally change how you plan your weekend. So, let's just jump right in.
Okay, let's map out our journey today through 4 key buckets. 1. Society and justice. 2. Infrastructure and economy. 3. Global tech and tensions. And 4. Daily life and weather.
Starting off with Section 1, Society and Justice, High-Stakes Accountability.
We're starting with the heaviest local news today concerning accountability and public safety. It revolves around a deeply tragic case that's really gripped the public. The Kai child abuse case has finally reached a conclusion at the Supreme Court. They finalized a life sentence in prison for the primary nanny and an 18-year sentence for her sister. Now, while the legal proceedings are firmly closed, grieving relatives and public advocates are urging, really demanding, that this tragedy has to spark systemic social welfare reform. We absolutely have to ensure high-risk children don't slip through the cracks like this ever again. Moving from justice over to food safety, a new, frankly alarming question is popping up all across the country right now. What exactly is hiding in our cooking oils? And unfortunately, the answer really isn't great. The sheer scale of this issue is wild. We've got carcinogens, specifically benzoapyrene, found in Lianjing Green Tech's camellia oil. This whole thing was linked back to raw materials from a Chinese farm, and it's resulted in over 700 bottles being recalled. At the exact same time, we're dealing with the ongoing Zhonglan toxic oil fallout. The manager there just bailed out for $1 million NTD. And major restaurant brands, we're talking places like Meizi and Tenten Hunan, are taking a massive hit. As you'd expect, politicians are fiercely debating missed inspections and trying to figure out who is ultimately to blame for this escalating public health scare. Moving on to Section 2, Infrastructure and Economy, Progress and Policy.
So the absolutely crucial number you need to know right here is 28 minutes. That is the highly anticipated new travel time from Taipei to Yilan on the newly approved high-speed rail extension. This is going to be a massive game changer for commuters and regional development. But to actually get that 28-minute commute, it's going to take a staggering 352 billion NTD. That's a huge investment. The Executive Yuan has officially approved this 60.6-kilometer plan, and they're estimating it'll take about 11 years to complete. Now, the route deliberately bypasses the Fakoi Reservoir to protect the water supply, and the main goal is to finally solve that chronic, awful congestion on Highway 5. But I should point out, this isn't without debate. Some critics and civic groups are still out there arguing that, hey, a direct standard rail upgrade would have been way more efficient and a lot less costly.
Shifting gears to the personal finance front, there's a massive conversation happening right now about your future. Lawmakers are aggressively pushing to reform the labor pension system. See, currently, the average retiree gets less than 20,000 NTD a month, which, let's be real, is incredibly difficult to live on. To combat this, new proposals are on the table to bump the mandatory employer contribution up from the current 6% to 8 or even 9%. It's a hugely critical policy debate, and it's going to directly impact the long-term financial security for millions of us.
Okay, zooming out now for Section 3, Global Tech and Tensions, AI and Markets.
The US and China are locked in an incredibly intense AI dispute right now, and it all centers around one specific concept: knowledge distillation. This is essentially where a smaller, weaker AI model learns by mimicking a larger, more advanced AI model to replicate its capabilities. Specifically, the Chinese startup Moonshot AI's Kimi K3 model is being accused of using this exact method to improperly siphon core tech from America's highly advanced Anthropic AI model. This isn't just a minor squabble either. It's becoming such a massive deal that US President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are literally set to discuss AI directly.
And as you might guess, all this tech sector anxiety is spilling over into the markets. Between the incredibly heavy capital expenditures needed to build these AI models and some pretty disappointing earnings from giants like Google and Tesla, major US indices just took a severe hit. We're talking the Dow dropping over 500 points, the Nasdaq plummeting 553 points, and the S&P 500 falling 90 points. Investors are absolutely feeling the heat of this AI arms race.
Amidst all these global tensions, and we should add concurrent Chinese military live-fire drills near Dongshan Island, Taiwan is making a major strategic pivot. By leveraging its absolute dominance in the semiconductor and electronic manufacturing space, Taiwan is rapidly expanding its military and commercial drone production. They are aiming for a massive 7-fold increase by 2030, with a target industry output of 40 billion NTD. It's a very clear, calculated move to become a critical, highly trusted hub in the global drone supply chain.
Bringing it back home for Section 4, Daily Life and Weather. What affects you today?
This first one is a question you really need to ask yourself, especially if you're scrolling through social media looking for work. Are you falling for a job scam? The 165 Anti-Fraud Network just reported over 4,600 fake job scam cases since last November alone. These scams are super sneaky. They're usually packaged as these amazing, high-pay, easy-hours gigs, but they are designed specifically to drain your assets and steal your bank accounts. Please, please stay vigilant out there.
And, well, speaking of losing money, here's a fascinating, if slightly painful, piece of trivia for you. One incredibly unlucky person in Tainan dropped their wallet on the train tracks, and a 3,600 NTD wad of cash was completely run over and crushed by a train. If this ever happens to you, though I really hope it doesn't, remember the central bank's rule: you only get a full refund if more than 3/4 of the bill remains intact. Because this poor person's bills were shredded to between half and 3/4 of their original size, they only got half their money back, just 1,800 NTD. Keep your wallets secure, folks. Now, for your weekend plans, you need to be highly aware of Typhoon Nangka. It's officially been upgraded to Typhoon number 12. Good news is, a direct catastrophic hit isn't expected right now. But it is located off the coast of Elawan B, and heavy rain is going to continuously impact the east and the Hengchan Peninsula. The peak impact is expected on Saturday, so definitely pack an umbrella and plan accordingly if you're heading out.
To wrap things up on a much lighter, albeit slightly bizarre note, New York City has decided to celebrate America's upcoming 250th anniversary with a hot dog. Yep, a massive 20-meter hot dog sculpture right smack in the middle of Times Square. It apparently took 40 people 3 whole months to build this gigantic tribute to the ultimate street food. It really just goes to show that sometimes cultural celebrations can be wonderfully, delightfully weird.
And across the Atlantic in Prague, a newly born South African fur seal is getting ready to make its big public debut. The zoo staff actually just set up a small pool for this little guy to take its very first introductory swimming lessons before facing the crowds. Honestly, it's exactly the kind of uplifting palate cleanser we all need after some of the heavier news today.
So we have covered a ton of ground today, from historic court rulings and billion-dollar infrastructure booms, all the way to global AI disputes, giant hot dogs, and baby seals. Looking at this crazy mix of events, ask yourself, which headline will actually impact your day the most? Are you paying attention to the local headlines that shape your daily life? Or are you getting a bit lost in the global noise? Let that sit with you for a bit, and we'll see you next time as we continue to break down the world around us.
Picture this scenario, right? You go out for this incredible, just a once-in-a-lifetime dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and you were paying top dollar for culinary perfection. But meanwhile, a guy riding his scooter down in Tainan drops his wallet on the train tracks.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and a passing train perfectly bisects a wad of his cash.
Yeah.
Just slices it right down the middle.
Wow, what are the odds?
Right. So he takes it to the central bank, and their automated rules dictate that because he only has exactly 50% of the physical paper, he gets exactly a 50% refund.
Right. It is the ultimate display of just rigid, unfeeling bureaucracy.
Exactly. But the punchline here, the thing that connects these two completely unrelated events, is that the guy with the sliced wallet is a victim of a system that demands, absolute down-to-the-millimeter perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the chef at that Michelin-starred restaurant, he was unknowingly cooking your dinner with oil contaminated by a toxic high-heat carcinogen.
Yeah, because the supply chain oversight just utterly collapsed.
Exactly. We demand microscopic precision in our refund policies, but we somehow let poisoned ingredients slide right onto the plates of the most elite restaurants.
It's wild. We have these strict rules for everyday citizens, but massive industrial failures just slip through the cracks.
And that contradiction is the mission for you today on this deep dive. Because when you want to truly understand a society, you don't look at the history books. You look at what the people are waking up to on a random Tuesday.
Right, the daily grind.
Yeah. So today, we are taking a core sample from a single morning news broadcast, specifically Taiwan's TTV News, dated July 24th, 2026.
It's a really packed broadcast, too.
It really is. We're drilling straight down through the teleprompter noise.
Yeah.
Going from like the geopolitical chess match of artificial intelligence to multi-billion-dollar train lines, all the way down to the bizarre friction of everyday life.
And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, reading through this single broadcast reveals a massive flashing warning light about the tension between oversight and consequence. I mean, we are rushing headlong into the future, but we are just catastrophically failing to maintain the present.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting at the very top. The global AI arms race.
Right.
The broadcast kicks off with something straight out of a corporate espionage thriller. There's this Chinese startup called Moonshot AI.
Oh, yeah. The K3 model.
Yeah, their new model, the K3. And they are facing massive accusations of stealing from leading U.S. models, specifically Anthropic.
Which, just for context, Anthropic is one of the premier AI safety and research labs in the world.
Exactly. But Moonshot isn't just like hacking a server in the middle of the night. They're using this really controversial method called distillation.
Right. And distillation is entirely upending international tech regulation right now.
Because no one knows how to handle it.
Exactly. Lawmakers don't even know how to classify it. Basically, you take a massive, incredibly expensive, highly intelligent model like Anthropic's.
Okay.
Then you have a smaller, much weaker AI model observe it.
Just watch it work.
Yeah. The smaller model analyzes the outputs, the patterns, the problem-solving steps of the supermodel, and effectively learns how to mimic that high-level reasoning.
Okay, let me put an analogy on this for you. It isn't just like the lazy kid copying the smartest kid's final essay.
No.
It's the lazy kid putting a hidden camera on the smart kid's desk, watching exactly how they draft the outline, how they structure their arguments, and stealing their entire thought process without ever opening a book or, paying the billion-dollar tuition fee.
That captures the mechanics perfectly. You get the elite performance without the decades of R&D costs.
Wow.
And because the smaller model is only copying the behavior, right? It's not literally stealing source code. So the legal frameworks around intellectual property are completely unequipped to stop it.
A massive loophole.
A huge one. And the stakes are so high now that U.S. President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping actually have a summit scheduled in September just to hash out these AI boundaries.
But Trump isn't just looking outward at China, right? He's also pushing domestic tech companies to foot the bill for their own massive energy costs.
Yes.
And the market is completely freaking out. The broadcast showed Google dropping 7%, Tesla taking a huge hit, and the Dow Jones plunging over 500 points just over these AI capital expenditures.
Yeah, it was a rough day for tech stocks.
But I have to push back here a little bit. Hasn't the tech industry always hit an energy or hardware bottleneck and then just innovated its way out of it?
Sure, historically.
So why is the market panicking now? Like this AI power drain is an unsolvable crisis.
Well, what's fascinating here is the sheer physical scale of the problem. This isn't like transitioning from bulky hard drives to microchips where things naturally get smaller and more efficient.
Right.
AI doesn't live in a magical weightless cloud. It lives in millions of massive servers that require the energy output of entire cities.
Literally.
Yeah. They generate so much heat that you need literal rivers of water and dedicated power plants just to keep them from melting down.
So the investors are finally doing the math on the concrete, the copper and electricity required to keep the AI dream alive.
Investors are having a brutal reality check right now. They're looking at the billions of dollars being poured into securing land, laying high-capacity fiber optics, building dedicated energy grids, and they're asking the most dangerous question in economics.
Which is?
When does this actually turn a profit?
Oof.
Yeah. The utopian promise of AI is crashing headfirst into the physical limitations of planet Earth.
And that tension, right, pouring billions into future physical infrastructure while struggling with the present, it mirrors perfectly what is happening on a national level in Taiwan.
Right, moving from global AI to local infrastructure.
Exactly. The broadcast shifts focus, and the contrast is just staggering. The government just approved a massive high-speed rail extension to Yilan.
A huge project.
Massive. We are talking over 350 billion new Taiwan dollars, which is roughly 10 to 11 billion US dollars. And for a project that will take 11 years to finish, all to cut travel time down to 28 minutes.
And they are pairing that astronomical investment with a massive pivot to defense tech, too.
Right, the drones.
Yeah, the goal is to build a 40 billion NTD drone manufacturing industry by 2030. That is a 7-fold increase from where they are today.
Wow.
They want to be a dominant global hub for automated fleets.
You see this absolute obsession with the shiny new thing? They want the 90-minute rail rings around the island. They want the futuristic drone swarms. But, like, are these governments so blinded by building the future that they're forgetting to change the oil and the engines they rely on right now?
This raises an important question, and the broadcast provided a very dark answer through the recent F-16 crash investigation.
Right, this is tragic.
A fighter jet went down, but it wasn't shot down. It didn't hit a bird. The investigation found that the jet's navigation systems had failed a full week prior to the crash.
Wait, full week?
A week prior. And the maintenance protocols were entirely ignored.
How does that even happen? How do you just ignore a failing navigation system on a multi-million-dollar piece of military hardware?
It happens through systemic bureaucratic fatigue.
Okay.
When all the glory, all the political capital, and all the massive budgets are being funneled into the new $40 billion drone fleet, the mundane maintenance of the old guard becomes an afterthought.
Everyone's looking at the new shiny toy.
Exactly. Mechanics get overworked, budgets get stretched, and vital safety checklists turn into simple rubber stamping exercises.
It's a culture of pencil whipping the logs. Because, no one gets promoted for simply doing the daily maintenance.
And the tragic irony is that true national security doesn't come from a futuristic drone fleet.
No.
It comes from the unglamorous, repetitive, daily oversight of the assets you already possess. If you don't maintain the plane you have today, it falls out of the sky before tomorrow even arrives.
Yeah. And that failure of basic oversight doesn't just stay isolated in the military. It bleeds straight into the civilian world, into the social safety net, which brings us to the Kai case.
This was just heartbreaking.
It really was. Kai was a 1-year-old boy who was fatally abused by 2 nanny sisters. The legal conclusion just came down, sentencing one sister to life and the other to 18 years. But the boy's relatives pointed a massive spotlight directly at the system itself. The Child Welfare League and the assigned social workers completely missed the red flags.
We see that same mechanism of systemic fatigue playing out in social work. It wasn't just 2 malicious nannies. It was a total collapse of the oversight mechanisms meant to protect the vulnerable.
The home visits, the check-ins, the standard protocols.
They became empty rituals. When social workers are overloaded and institutions prioritize processing cases over deep qualitative investigation, you get a safety net made entirely of paper.
That's a chilling way to put it.
And when the public realizes that the institutions they fund cannot even protect an infant, baseline trust in the society evaporates.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. You take that evaporated trust from a horrific social failure, and you compound it with a failure in basic daily survival.
Food safety.
Yes, food safety. The broadcast highlighted a massive scandal involving a cold-pressed camellia oil from a company called Lianjin Green Tech. It was found to contain benzopyrene.
Which, for those who don't know, benzopyrene is a dangerous known carcinogen.
Right.
But the chemical mechanism of benzopyrene is that it is almost exclusively created through high-heat combustion.
Which makes absolutely no sense. I mean, if it's a cold-pressed oil, meaning no heat was applied during the extraction process, how is a high-heat carcinogen getting into the bottle?
Because the contamination happens completely upstream, hidden in the supply chain.
Oh.
Lianjin Green Tech was using cheap, poorly processed raw materials imported from China.
So they weren't starting with clean ingredients.
Right. To artificially increase the yield and extract more oil cheaply, those raw materials were likely heat-treated or roasted under terrible conditions before they ever reached Taiwan.
Wow.
The carcinogen was already baked into the seed. So the Taiwanese facility can cold press it all they want, but they are just pressing poison materials.
And the oversight was so non-existent that this tainted product flowed right into the market.
Yep.
Another compromised brand they mentioned, Zhonglin Oil, actually made its way into the kitchens of Michelin-starred restaurants.
Just unbelievable.
So there you are, paying hundreds of dollars for a world-class meal, entirely unaware that the foundational ingredient is carcinogenic.
It all comes back to a total collapse of oversight. You cannot trust the social workers' report, you cannot trust the military maintenance log, and you cannot even trust the cooking oil at an elite restaurant.
And that leads to immense political volatility. The broadcast covered the fallout, and, we're looking at this strictly as a symptom of a panicked system. But people are furious.
Of course they are.
Taipei Mayor Cheng Wan-an is organizing a march, taking to the streets to demand central government action. Meanwhile, the ruling party's Secretary General, Xu Kuo-young, is firing back, claiming the local city governments failed to conduct proactive testing in the first place.
It is the predictable pressure release valve of a terrified populace.
Yeah, the blame game.
Right. The political finger-pointing is irrelevant to the core issue. Whether the failure occurred at the central or municipal level, the social contract has been violated. Something as mundane as cooking oil can mobilize thousands of protesters because it represents a complete loss of control.
So what does this all mean for the everyday person? Like when you feel like the big macro systems, the governments, the safety nets, the food supply are feeling you, it creates a profoundly high friction society.
Definitely.
Everyone is on edge. Every tiny micro interaction becomes bizarre, litigious, and just absurd.
The anxiety of the macro world trickles down and infects our daily habits.
Let me give you 3 examples from this exact same morning broadcast that highlight just how weird things have gotten.
Let's hear them.
First, the dog bowl incident. A woman goes to a duck meat restaurant down in Kaohsiung. The place has a sign saying it's pet-friendly, so she takes one of the restaurant's limited edition ceramic human bowls and feeds her dog out of it.
Oh boy. The unwritten rules of social etiquette just breaking down entirely in public.
Yeah, and the public outcry was so intense, and the hygiene debate got so aggressive that the restaurant owner had to publicly smash and destroy the limited edition bowl just to appease the mob.
Wow.
It sparked a national debate that pet-friendly doesn't mean sharing human tableware.
People are just so tightly wound.
Right. And just to contrast how bizarre our relationship with pets has gotten, the news briefly cut to a story in South Korea where people are happily paying 20,000 won, which is about $15 for pet tarot card readings.
Pet tarot cards.
Yes, to try and magically divine what their dogs are thinking.
Well, when humans lose trust in each other and their institutions, they project that need for connection onto their pets, often in really absurd ways.
Yeah, I guess so.
But the friction isn't always just awkward public etiquette, right? Sometimes it becomes actively predatory.
Which brings us to the fake bank. A scam firm set up shop calling themselves Wang Dao Consulting, intentionally mimicking the name of a very real trusted bank. They target people who are already financially desperate, promising debt relief. But they weaponize the very bureaucracy people are afraid of against them.
They hide traps in the fine print.
Brutal traps. They charge 20% upfront fees, and if a victim realizes they've been scammed and tries to cancel the contract or take them to court, the fine print dictates the victim owes a 200,000 NTD penalty.
That's roughly 6,000 US dollars.
Yes, applied every single day.
Every day. This kind of scam only functions in a society conditioned to accept complex, punitive legal systems.
Exactly.
The scammers know that the public already feels crushed by rules and regulations, so they simply invent their own fake regulations to paralyze their victims with fear.
The common sense has entirely left the building. And nowhere is the cold, unfeeling nature of these systems more obvious than in our final story. We started with it, but we have to look closer at the sliced wallet.
It really is the perfect encapsulation of the entire broadcast.
So a man in Tainan drops his wallet on the train tracks. A train runs over it, and the wheels perfectly slice a wad of cash, 3,600 NTD to be exact, right down the middle. He takes the completely bisected bills to the central bank.
And you would think, a human being behind the counter would look at the obvious track marks, look at the perfectly half bills, and use common sense to issue a replacement.
But the bureaucratic algorithm does not allow for common sense.
No, it doesn't.
The central bank's rule explicitly states that refunds are based entirely on the physical percentage of the note remaining. Because the train sliced it mathematically in half, he possessed exactly 50% of the paper.
Right.
Therefore, the system dictated he receive exactly 50% of the value. They handed him back 1,800 NTD.
The system cares nothing for the reality of the train. It only cares about the rigid measurement of the torn paper in front of it.
To his immense credit, though, the guy just laughed at the absurdity of it all and donated his 1,800 NTD to charity.
That's a good response.
But it is such a wild journey to pull from one single morning of news on July 24, 2026. We went from the heights of AI espionage and geopolitical tension to the massive $350 billion rail networks, down through the heartbreaking failures of social workers and toxic cooking oil, all the way to a sliced wallet on a Tainan train track.
And it leaves you with a really fascinating paradox to consider.
What's that?
We are pouring all of our capital, our energy, and our genius into building super intelligent AI models to oversee our lives. We want algorithms to manage our power grids, our financial markets, our defense systems.
Right.
But we are doing this precisely because humans are proving incapable of managing basic, unglamorous oversight, like conducting a thorough home visit for a child or checking the maintenance logs on a fighter jet.
We want the machines to do the boring oversight for us.
But if human beings are already this fatigued, this prone to rubber stamping, and this easily manipulated by fine print, who is going to oversee the AI?
Oh, wow.
If we cannot be trusted to audit a simple batch of cold-pressed cooking oil today, what makes us think we will have the discipline to properly audit a superintelligence tomorrow?
That is a terrifying thought to leave on.
Yeah.
The system doesn't break because of a Terminator robot. It breaks because someone didn't read the manual.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you. Always look past the headlines and seriously, read the fine print before you sign anything.
And maybe bring your own bowl to the restaurant.
As you look at the shiny, high-tech future being built around you today, ask yourself, who is remembering to change the oil?